Hey my friends, welcome back to Frogboy X1 Gaming. I'm Andrew and I've been reading your guys' comments all day, and there's one thing that keeps coming up and I keep getting, you guys keep writing me a big long thing telling me, how I'm wrong, how I don't know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about bus width on these GPUs. And I just need to clarify something, okay? Before the 40 series cards launched, bus width was very important and everybody talked about it. But now the marketing has switched to try to explain to us in elaborate ways how all of a sudden you can do more with less bus if you have faster memory. Like, I 100% understand that, guys, but I just didn't fall for that nonsense. I know that a physical bigger bus width, because there's more lanes of highway, you can drive more cars on it, and you can keep putting more through it, is definitely always going to be better than a small little highway with faster cars. Okay, so wider bus, fast cars. They're still fast. They're still super fast, or squeezed highway with with faster cars. You still get more. Like you still have to put the cars through. Each one of those cars now. So I understand what you guys are talking about, my friends. Like I definitely do. And the 384-bit bus of the 7900 XTX is always going to be superior to the 256-bit bus for the 4080 Super, even if it has GDDR6X memory that's slightly faster than what I'm running right now. Even Nvidia themselves have come out when they had to lower when they had to change the RAM on the 4070 or whatever to tell you that, like, oh yeah, it doesn't really make a difference. It really doesn't make a difference. How fast the memory is, it matters more of how much you can get through, like, how many lanes. Now, you can sit here and try to, trust me, I sat and chatted with ChatGTP for a little while on this subject to make sure that I was right and that I understood correctly what I was talking about, because I feel like I'm right. Like, I feel like Nvidia going out of their way to cut down these cards. Now, they both technically did. I mean, if you want to be technical, 128-bit bus, more than sufficient for 1080p gaming. 192-bit bus, definitely decent for, 1080p, 1440p. It's decent. 256-bit bus, yeah, obviously that's usually your sweet spot for 1440p. Definitely can do some 4K gaming, but not like super heavy 4K gaming. Like, it can definitely do it. Now, you'll notice if you have a 4080 or 4080 Super, go ahead and put on, your games at 4K, run them at max settings, and you'll notice that you get kind of I would say kind of a micro stuttery experience. The only time I ever was able to get rid of this micro stuttery experience on like a 40 series GPU on the 4080 Super that I had was to lower my settings. Once I would lower my settings from, ultra to high, or maybe even, a mixture of high and medium, or high and ultra, that micro stutter would mostly go away. Most of the time. Like, it would most of the time go away. Like, it would go away because there was not, the GPU wasn't being pushed as hard at 4K. Now, we're talking about native 4K, guys. We're not talking about the fake DLSS 4K stuff like that. We're talking about native 4K. DLSS and all of that stuff brings in its own little issues that you have to deal with. And yes, those definitely create micro stutter for me most of the time. And, you can literally chalk that and all of my monitors have G-Sync, so it doesn't matter. Like, it's not a G-Sync thing. It's definitely more of a platform thing for me, anyways. Like, I've never found a way to completely solve it, and there are literal freaking tons of people out there always freaking out about stuttering in video games, and even Digital Foundry's Alex Battaglia is always talking about stuttering video games. Now, in my testing, from what I have been able to do when I had that 4080, is I would notice that, like, if I was playing something and I was running at 4K and I had like ultra settings or something, and I would notice like the little micro stutter, like, it was just, there was always that dang stutter in there. I would lower my settings, it would mostly go away. depending on the game. On some games it went completely away, some games it was still there, and there was just something I couldn't do, like something like Forspoken. I don't think I ever got the Nvidia GPUs to run that game smoothly without that micro stutter. I think it was always there, because I think that game, you know, the way that it utilizes like fast storage or DirectX 12 in instant, what is it, like direct storage or something? I think that maybe that had something to do with it, because when I run it on my AMD cards, nice and butter smooth, man. Well, at least on my 20 gigabyte and my 24 gigabyte. I did experience a little bit of stutter with the 7800 XT, 7600 XT, obviously, you know, but when I was trying to run that card on like my 7900 XT or my XTX, I would obviously get the stutter if I was recording, but when I would turn that off, it was absolutely perfect, absolutely perfect. So I know for a fact that a wider bus width is definitely always going to be superior than a smaller bus width. And whatever you got to tell yourself, my friends, and I'm not trying to be mean, whatever you got to tell yourself to minimize or not to justify, you know, still spending that much money for a cut down card, because that's basically what it is. It's cut down. If you look at AMD's offerings when they're cutting their cards down, they're actually, you know, I'm not necessarily as worried about the 4060. I mean, obviously they should have. I think, I don't know, 192-bit bus is not too much to ask for some of those cards, especially for the prices that these guys are asking for. I mean, I think what the Intel Battlemage is 192-bit bus, which is pretty good. That's sufficient or whatever. But when you look at the overall, you know, thing, you know, when they're trying to convince you that like faster memory is going to solve that problem, to me, yeah, it will solve the problem at that. If you're using the 4080 Super at 1440p, absolutely, it's going to solve that problem. No issue with that at 1440p. But if you're trying to use this card at 4K, then that becomes a problem, because it is no longer a 1440p card. You are effectively trying to use this as a 4K card. So you are going to need, not for every game, but there are going to be games that are going to come out, and you don't buy a 4K card for certain games and then not be able to play the other games that you want to play at 4K. That to me just doesn't make sense. Now, to me, it's like when I bought the 7900 XTX and I bought the 4080 Super, and I had them, you know, and I had them both at the same time, and I was using them, I would look at the overall experience. I looked at the games that I play, and I ran them at the settings that I would want to run them. And the card that came out on top the most was the 7900 XTX. Always better frame rate, always better stability, just always felt like a better experience how I wanted to play that game. Now, when I look back and I think about the 4080 Super, like when I had that card, it was at peak. Like it was at peak. It was like, this is peak. Everything is new. Like this is peak 4080 Super experience. Card barely just came out. It wasn't even that old. It was peak 4080 Super. So I was like, yeah, I felt like it was a good comparison, that if I had now, obviously I would be running different things now than I was running back then, and we would obviously start to see some of the stuff that would probably have me out here making a bunch of negative content about Nvidia. Now, I get that Nvidia is like the premium brand, okay? And people are gonna buy it no matter what. Like no matter what you say, they're gonna buy it. Like I don't even think it registers to most people. They just, I mean, even me, when I first started PC gaming, I look down at AMD like, that's trash, I'm getting Nvidia, and I'm gonna buy whatever Nvidia I can find. And granted, this was during the COVID, so I mean, my options were severely limited for Nvidia. I had laptops or like 60 series cards, and I was like, all right, whatever. And then when I finally got to a point where I could get an 80 series card, I got one. And that was short-lived, and that sucked. And I will forever have a negative taste in my mouth for Nvidia, just due to the fact that it's like, wow, man, you go out, you spend this money, you want to play these games, and then you find out that like, oh, I can't. But then you go back and you look at all the YouTubers out there and all the tech experts that told us, yeah, man, 10 gigs, that's going to be just fine. Well, I might worry a little bit about 10 gigs, but you should be fine. You should be. Every single one of them said it. And so like that day, like I lost a lot of respect for a lot of them. I did. I lost a lot of respect for a lot of them, and now you have them doing the same thing with 12 gigabytes. I get it, man. 12 gigabytes is definitely enough for certain situations. Like I would never argue that. That's crazy. There are certain specific things that 12 gigabytes is going to be just fine. 16 gigabytes is probably a pretty dang good sweet spot for the most part. So I'm not condemning the 4080 Super, but I think that the 4080 Super should have had 20 and the 4070 Ti Super should have been their 16 gigabyte card, because that one there's treading the line. You could easily be like, yeah, dude, shove that one off on down to the 1440p stack, but leave the 4080 intact for like 4K. I mean, I don't know one Nvidia guy out there that wouldn't have preferred 4080 for the money to have a 320-bit bus with 20 gigabytes of VRAM minimum. And they would have been happy. I would have been happy. I think the world would have been happy. For $1,000, even for $1,200, I think they would have been happy. Why? Because they know that that card would have been sufficient longer. And especially with DLSS. DLSS is going to stretch that card a lot further. But if it had just those two little things, that card would have been absolutely incredible. And like no brainer, a lot of people would have been justified buying that card. Just like I feel like people are technically justified in buying a 4070 Ti Super. I think that's a good card. I think that's a good price. I think that's a good card. I think the $800 for that with Nvidia's tech, I don't see that as a super bad overall buy. I don't. Like, I feel like that there, if you're playing at 1440p or even 3440 by 1440p, that's a good solid card. I think that will get you by. I think that one's probably one of the better cards in the Nvidia stack. The 4080, to me, the 4080 and the 4080 Super, I feel like those cards are what's wrong with the Nvidia stack in general, and what's wrong with the way Nvidia's thinking in general going forward. You can't spend a long time hyping up stuff like bus width and memory speeds and all of this stuff just at the last moment to try to rip it out from under them and replace a lot of that actual freaking hardware with software. Now, I get that DLSS is potent and they've got people pretty trained to be like, yeah, man, this is the best, it's better than 4K. You're never going to convince me. I've seen them both. I've seen them both running on my monitor, and I'm just not impressed. I'm not that impressed with DLSS. I'm more impressed with the way that AMD looks on my screen. And you know what, guys? Actually buying this camera has helped me like really understand different color sciences and stuff, because I've been watching a lot of other people that actually cover cameras and stuff, and they'll talk about, like Fuji's color science, Canon's color science, Sony's color science, Nikon's color science. And then you start to look at that and you start to think, and you're like, wait a minute, that's freaking crazy that these things have different out-of-the-box LUTs. Now, a LUT is something that will, you can just, download it, drop it in your thing, and it will automatically populate the color if you're shooting an S-Log3 or something like that. S-Log is basically, if you try to view it, it's going to look like black and white or flat, like there's no color information, no high dynamic range or anything in there. So when you're looking at S-Log3, you get to go in there and paint like a paintbrush. You get to go in there and adjust your colors, adjust your settings. And so LUTs are things that people will sit down and they'll literally go through meticulously and try to pull out all of the different colors, because the high dynamic range, so many stops of high dynamic range gives you such a broad freaking amount of colors to work with. And so when you're looking at that, and you have people like in there fine tuning this, and you've got like Sony's color and everything else. And then when I look at PlayStation 5 Pro versus Xbox, and I look at the color science, color science from this Sony camera to that PlayStation 5, pretty damn close, guys. There's like this, because right now I'm using PP11 on my FX30, and the PP11 actually gives me that nicer like filmic look and stuff that I like. I like that filmic look. And when I look at that, when you can see that, you can just see this like whole, like I can see the different color sciences from Nvidia and AMD. AMD has like this, like it's more like a, it's not like Nvidia is just too dialed in. Like Nvidia is just too like I don't know how to say it. Like it just looks too like clinical, too realistic. It's not punchy enough. It's not poppy. It doesn't pop like the way I want it to. Well, AMD does. AMD absolutely does. Now you can make AMD look like that. And I've tried making Nvidia's color science look closer to AMD. I just can't get it, guys. I just can't get it. I've tried, and I don't like it. It doesn't do it for me. It's so much easier to just set it up out of the box through AMD. I'm just like, yeah, let's just do it. Boom. So when we look at these things and these cutbacks and these drawbacks to these GPUs, my friends, and you know, it's not that I don't, you know, think that like Nvidia can make a good card, but here's the thing, man. Like, are you buying, like, to me, it just feels like Nvidia is selling disposable GPUs. Like they're consumable. Like they're consumable. Like they're not made to last. They're just there to consume and move on. Consume, replace, move on. And you know, if that's what you want, that's fine. I'm not going to try to tell you that that's crazy, but for them to be charging you more and more and more money every generation for a consumable product, that kind of sucks, man. That absolutely sucks. Whereas with AMD, I kind of feel like there's some longevity to that. And yeah, dude, I'm always gonna shoot for longevity over flash in the pan, bro. Seriously, like flash in the pan is cool, but I definitely like longevity, and I feel like that is more important to the majority of gamers out there. That, man, I get comments, man, I bought a 3070 and it sucks. I wish it would go. I get those comments all the time, guys. I do, and it's sad, you know, to see that. And so yeah, I do kind of take offense when people are like freaking out about me and like telling me I'm shilling AMD, man, because I've been happy with AMD. I'm just a consumer, just like you guys. Trust and believe. If I would have bought an AMD GPU and it would have did the same thing that Nvidia stuff does, I'd have been right here freaking out on them too. So, all right, guys. Well, we're gonna see pretty soon what these new GPUs are. I just wanted you guys to understand that yes, I know what I'm talking about when it comes to this bus width stuff. I definitely do. And yeah, I'm always going to be like, yeah, a wider bus width, faster memory. Yeah, that is a better hardware spec than cutting that down and making the memory faster. Trust me, it's a cut. It's a cut. The 256-bit from a 4K card, that's a cut. Faster memory, okay, it closes up the gap a little bit, but that's it. When there's no more, when that faster memory can no longer fulfill that need, it's done. It doesn't have anywhere else to go. But when you got a wider bus and you've got more memory, you're definitely going to be able to push a lot further into the future than you will be with that cut down, with that gimping of that 4080 Super. So, all right, guys, if you like this content, do not forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.